Welcome to Coffee and Kodály, a collection of conversations between music educators for educators. I'm Chris Brown, your host, and also the Vice President of Kodály Educators of Texas. Please join us for our conversation today with Jeremy Parker. Jeremy Parker is a teacher from Louisiana. You might know him from his YouTube series, The House on Music Street. Please join us for this conversation today about our experiences teaching through the COVID-19 pandemic. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Let's start the conversation. Let's go ahead and get started. So, for those that are listening, this is a conversation between Christopher Brown, a Kodály music specialist in KCASD in Texas, and Jeremy Parker is a Kodály specialist in Louisiana. And what district do you teach?
So I teach at an independent school in New Orleans, and I do pre-K through third classroom. So have not had a chance to dive into the fourth and fifth grade handbooks in earnest, but use a few things here and there for my third graders.
So at your school, do you have a co-teacher that teaches the higher grade levels, or is it just you and that's the highest grade level you have at third grade?
So it's interesting. When the kids at our school get to fourth grade, they get to choose a performing fine arts path that can diverge two ways. They can do band for the full year, or they can do choir for a semester and drama for a semester. Huh. Yeah, and it splits pretty evenly, I think. But as a result, I don't do band, and I haven't taught choir at this school. So the woman who teaches choir at our school has been there for, I think, maybe somewhere around 15 years. And she also is the early childhood music specialist. So our school starts at 6 weeks. You can kind of imagine like the size of maybe a small community college campus or so. School's been around about 115 years.
Oh, wow. That is quite a historic building.
It is. There are lots of buildings on campus. So the it's split into 4 divisions: early childhood, elementary, middle, and high school. So she does 6 weeks up to pre-K, and then she also does 4th and 5th grade choir. So
gotcha.
It's a rather unique setup that we have, I would say. I haven't encountered anyone else who splits that way.
Yeah, that is definitely a unique setup and a bit different from the Texas patterns that are set up. So COVID just kind of went through all of the United States around March. And I remember my last day was on our actual field day, the Friday right before spring break. And I'm out there doing tug of war with kids, and they just pulled me in there like, it's time to cancel field day and get everyone inside and start handing out like paperwork for the kids. Like they gave the teachers 3 hours basically to get send home packets because they knew like they weren't coming back after spring. And they said it'll probably just be a week. And I laughed a little going, like that's cute. China's locked down for months and we think this is going to be a week. When did lockdown happen for your district in Louisiana where it was like, we're done? So
it was March 13th, I believe, whatever that Friday was.
Yeah.
We could kind of tell the way the wind was blowing. About a week before that, they called a whole campus faculty meeting, early childhood through high school teachers, all 200 of us or whatever it is, after school and said, hey, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, of course, but we're making plans as if we're going to have to take this drastic step, just so that if we do, we're prepared. And I think at that point, they genuinely were hoping that we would just have to cancel for a few weeks, maybe a month, But I think everyone was, at least in the back of their minds, realistic and knew that it was probably going to extend through the end of the year. And so on the 13th, they said, we're going home. We're going to have a few days off early next week, and we're going to have a Zoom meeting with the whole faculty to talk about how we're going to approach this online learning. So we did not do take-home packets, at least in the elementary portion of my campus, which is called the lower school.
I like that, lower school.
The lower school, yeah. And high school is called upper school. There was some terminology I had to learn when I made the leap into the independent school world.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
But so I can't remember where I was. We all went home and carted home pretty much everything we thought we could need in case it lasted the whole rest of the year. And of course it did. We just had our last all school assembly yesterday, online, of course. So there were some mixed emotions around that.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, when you say mixed emotions, what do you mean by that? Was it like it's hard seeing the students, or was there like some stress involved situations on just making that happen?
Oh, all of it. I mean, it was the whole last 2 months have been probably the most stressful 2 months of my career, I can say for sure. I did not teach in New Orleans during Katrina. I've heard stories from teachers who have been at the school since before then, and I'm sure that was worse, but I didn't experience that. So this has been pretty crazy for me. I also have 2 kids.
Yeah, how old are you?
Started this, they were both
old are your
underage.
kids?
So the older one just turned 4, and then my daughter is about 1.5. So they are very needy, and so that has been a gigantic stressor for me this entire time.
I can only imagine that being a stressor. Like I have an 8-year-old who's feisty, and what's great is that she can be a little bit independent, but to go off your 2 kids that are young, needy, like they really have no idea of the reality that's happening around them.
No, they don't, and it's changing their behavior, but they can't really explain, or they don't really understand why. They're not able to process why they had to say goodbye to their friends and why they have to go to something that I call school at home.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, I'm not going to lie, but the mixed emotions of just the last couple months finally coming to a close, that's great. Where everybody is zoomed out, but it was kind of sad because the last assembly of the year is always a big joyous occasion, and there were lots of people missing because they were zoomed out, and so I don't know, just
so was that last
every emotion you could feel as a teacher.
Yeah, was that last meeting a mandatory one, or was it voluntary and people were like, I'm done, like I can't, it's an emotional toll at this point?
So it's the whole lower school always gathers for the sportsmanship awards. The PE department gives out sportsmanship awards based on behavior for the entire year at the last assembly of the year, and then the kids in an ordinary world go up on stage and get all this thunderous applause from all their friends, and it's magical to see them smile on stage. And this time they'd announce the names and just show a picture of the kid, and there was silence, or like one person clapping who forgot to go on mute.
Almost like the humanity was taken out of it. Like it's
indeed
this interactive TV that we're just watching awkwardly together.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a second because you brought up an interesting thing that for your school, they had already been affected by something so traumatic like the Katrina hurricane. So were most of those teachers that you've been working with, you said they were there for Katrina?
I would say a lot of them were. I'm not sure of the exact percentage, but our faculty is kind of all over the place in years of experience. We are a well-established school, and personally, I will say it is a fabulous place to teach. I've been there 5 years, and if I were there for 55, it would be super cool.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of teachers who have been there decades,
and that's fascinating just to think about. Like that's a traumatic event that I'm sure impacted that school for maybe, like, I'm assuming water damage or just dealing with like repairs, and then on top of that, now you have COVID, and it's just the things I've been seeing on Facebook and then on social media sites where all these school districts and governors are like, well, teachers are teaching from home, and we just kind of did it. Like it was, all right, get to work. And it's just, it impresses me, all the teachers that are essentially working through traumatic events one after the other. Like, well, here's STAR test, it's very traumatic. Here's the Louisiana standardized test, traumatic. Also, school shootings, traumatic. And let's put on top of that world-spanning plague that no one can tell until 2 weeks after you've already been infected.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that I think that having a good portion of our faculty around for Katrina probably helped us prepare from a practical standpoint, and also maybe from a psychological standpoint too. I'm sure the ones who are there for Katrina are like, yeah, this sucks, but this is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, we had teachers move and teach in Memphis for 2 years until the school reopened. So I had one teacher who was there, my best friend at work, who was one of those who went to Memphis, and she was like, this is terrible, and next year is probably going to be kind of terrible, but everybody can do anything for a year. I learned through my Katrina experience. So
the world's on fire, but this is fine. Well, I'll get through it.
Yep.
Wow, that's super intense. So you get the meeting, I'm assuming, with your faculty. That's the follow-up after spring break, right? And it's we're teaching.
Oh, we had not had spring break yet because we had just come off of. No, we'd just come off of Mardi Gras break. Oh. So in Louisiana, it's a little different. We get a week off for Mardi Gras here because, frankly, the city cannot function. Like buses can't get where they need to get.
Oh my God! Stuff. Wait, so you get spring break and Mardi Gras, or is it?
Yes, you heard that correctly.
Oh my God! So it's you're just so used to pandemics and social nonsense. It's like we can't. That's fascinating that a city just is like
social nonsense is that should be the new tourism slogan for the city.
Yeah, social nonsense. We're not going to cope with the drunks and the tourists. Just close it down. Close it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had not had spring break, and that was actually. It's always great to have 2 breaks in the second semester, of course.
I can imagine.
And to have a second break later in the year, it's phenomenal when the kids are really going crazy and ready for a break. But it was magical this time because we were all finally getting our footing underneath us for teaching remotely, and everyone was stressed out and just losing sleep. And then we had a week where we could say, we're not doing anything. We're just going to stay at home like we have been, but we're not doing anything.
Yeah. So what was the response from your school after Mardi Gras week? I can't help. I just love saying that. Mardi Gras break. What was the response?
It's really absurd, I understand.
Was it just kind of like a blast of like figure it out, or did they come at you with a plan of like we're all using Zoom or we're all using Google Hangouts? What was the?
Yeah, they had it all together. Unbeknownst, mostly I think, to our staff, some of the administrators had been laying out this foundation of a plan for weeks before we even had the come together meeting that it might happen, just in case. That's highly
really good leadership. Yeah,
I know.
That's
impressive. I have to say, I've been highly impressed by the leadership throughout this entire thing. And I say that even knowing that my bosses will not listen to this. Oddly enough, though, on the way home, I went to my first TMEA this year, and I flew back to New Orleans from San Antonio, and sitting there waiting in the airport in San Antonio, and who should come sit next to me but that very boss I was just talking about, and we flew home together.
Oh, that's funny. Oh my God.
It's really random. But yeah, they've got it. They've had it down, and they delivered enough of a structure that we felt good, or as good as you could going into something like that. But they also gave us enough autonomy that, and they didn't put an immense amount of pressure on us right away. They stressed to us that we need to ease into this, and the parents of children we're teaching need to ease into this. And so, it was nice to have that buffer.
We had a similar experience in Hayes, because we had some teachers that were gung-ho, let's do this, let's get Zoom choirs going. And we're like, some of them don't even have a phone. And if they do have a phone, it's their parents' phone, and they just lost their work because of COVID-19. So, in Hayes, some of us adopted just the YouTube-style playlist of lessons. And eventually I got a group of us together that we were like taking segments and just breaking down a Kodály sequence and going, look, just put this in.
I saw that. That was very smart.
Yeah. And it was all pre-learned stuff because we're like, we don't... the huge panic, I think, with a lot of music teachers, especially in the Kodály perspective, is that fear of judgment of, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, and now, like, the cat's out of the bag because of, like, a pandemic. Like, everyone's gonna see, like, I'm 3 concepts behind, and I literally had to have, like, a come-to-Jesus meeting with some of them and go, nobody cares. The world is dying. We're just gonna review. And,
I mean, you might get an online admonishment from Miho or Phil, but it will be light, if anything.
Yeah, and you know, with those two, it's like, go away. I have my pretty certificate. I paid you. Be gone, you know?
I bought every book you've released.
Yeah, just you two. Go.
I will say, though, so, I mean, you know, of course, the 3 levels are a lot of work, and
yes,
for many, a lot of tears. But, I mean, of course, I use it constantly, and I'm
Oh, yeah.
so glad I did it. And
third week Wednesday cry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, as Catherine calls it. And I have just been ripping off their material right and left since we started teaching remotely. I mean, just putting it all up on YouTube, even using my Phil voice.
Yeah,
You know?
and it's the strange thing of, like, when it comes to YouTube and copyright and figuring out, okay, what's me and what am I just, like, verbatim taking from a pedagogy.
Yeah.
And it's very strange, an idea of, like, copywriting educational material or just a sequence. Like, it's a fascinating dilemma. When you started teaching online, how did you come to the idea for your essentially like Mr. Rogers YouTube show?
Yeah. So, oh God, it feels like forever ago. I think I could tell within the first day or two that just being at home with my kids, that there were going to be other parents in the same boat that were going to be in over their heads or just need half an hour where they can press play on something that's at least halfway educational and then walk away so they could do their dishes or like have 30 minutes to themselves. And I could just see that in my own life, that's what I would need. And so I kind of conceived, I mean, I actually do live on Music Street. And so,
oh yes, in fact, I Googled it when I saw the sign. I was like, that can't be Photoshop. And I looked and I was like, that is for sure Music Street in Louisiana.
And that was just a happy coincidence when we bought the house, but we actually looked at 2 houses on Music Street a block away from each other. But so I can't remember exactly how it came to be other than just, I knew that I didn't want to, I would be working by myself because I'm the only one who teaches these particular grades in my school. And we're an independent school, so we're not in a district with other teachers who are teaching similar ages out of the same, Houlihan and Taka handbooks. So I knew I was pretty much all by my lonesome. And I knew what I wanted to teach, but rather than upload individual segments by myself, like over and over and over and over, I just decided to make it one long one each week. And then I was like, well, I might as well I'm kind of a cartoon character when I teach anyway, so we
typically tend to be the guide teachers of Kodály. We've got a few screws missing in our heads.
Go
ahead.
I will say that when I originally conceived of it, I was going to make it more grade level specific, but then about 4 days into it, with all the work that it was taking me and all of the extra curricular stuff I had to do around the house, teaching my own kids while my wife also works full time, and knowing that I wanted something where parents of any age child could get something educational out of it. I just kind of ditched the idea of, sticking to the unit plans for each grade. And I just found things that I thought would be educational that kids of any grade could enjoy. So it became one episode geared with like more generic material, rather than a bunch of specific things that, well, this is from third grade unit 4 or third graders.
And I have to commend you because your videos, like, I'm not sure what your what level was when you started, but they're very well done. And the intro is fantastic with the essential flashcards animation. Like it's adorable. It is in that Mr. Rogers-esque PBS like public access show. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Like listeners, I'll say it. I do not recommend what I did if you're alone. Like if you can't convince 6 other music teachers to like team up with you and divide something, like trying to do like 6 grade levels of Kodály education once a week, like videos, like I would be near tears.
And that is what I realized quickly.
Yeah.
And that is why, also, I cannot recommend it the way I did it either. I was still up until like 3 a.m. most nights.
Yeah,
just
it's
working
that editing.
On this insane thing. Oh, the editing takes so long.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad that I undertook it because I enjoy a creative project that is long-term and requires me to compose my own music and learn new things about editing and tech and all this stuff. And certainly I'm so happy with the response from my students and other students that I've heard from around the country. But there will not be a season 2 of the House on Music Street.
Yeah. What and going back just a second, what level of tech did you start with? Like how foreign was it to you?
Not very. I've been using GarageBand to record music, like pretty robust GarageBand compositions, not just like loops and stuff. I got a bachelor's in composition, and so in order to make myself feel like I'm using my degree, I've made myself compose music for my students every single year, and in doing so, I record via GarageBand all the time. So I was pretty proficient on that. And I also make practice videos before performances for my students that I throw up on YouTube. So I've made those through iMovie, and those are pretty much the only 2 programs I really know how to use well, and those are the only 2 I stuck to. I still don't love iMovie, even though I have logged hundreds and hundreds of hours on it now.
Well, and I'm assuming you're a Mac user, correct, with the iMovie?
Yeah.
And that makes total sense. Like, I'm a PC zombie person. I will build a computer. I like have this psychotic of a build right now with a gaming laptop, which saved my life just because it had the video processing power to edit as fast as I wanted it to. And the great thing about Mac computers is that it's for the artist and designer in mind. It's completely loud. It'll do what you want, but it's in that slick Apple box. You can't really break out of it. But
no, like, hey, iMovie, why won't you let me just put text on the screen where I want it and in the font size that I want it? Why does it have to be this terrible, already dated looking title sequence?
Yeah.
It's terrible. But I don't know. The program is fine for what I needed, I guess.
Well, yeah, and it's such a strange thing that we were, I guess, this day and age of having the electronics at home to be able to do something like this just on the fly for teachers to just make up these studios. Just like, all right, I'm a teacher now, having my own public access show on YouTube, or like, here's my Google website and go to it. And it's odd to me now looking at like the progress of how some other teachers are now reaching, like, here's my interactive classroom online.
Yeah.
And I'm like, school's over now, isn't it, for some of y'all? like, my last day was today, and it's been pretty much paperwork and saying goodbye to kids, and like, I got to the point of making my videos because that was the thing. I knew I was getting kids watching them, and parents were thankful. And my school was requiring an office hour where I just had to be available. So I was like, "Oh,
I did that too."
I was like, I can't just sit here and look at a screen." So I got me and my kid playing like video games on YouTube Live, and people could check in, and I'd answer questions and like do tech help with parents. But I was like, I'm not gonna just sit here because then my wife will stare at me if I'm not doing dishes or something else. Like, it's just.
I just took my computer out on the back porch and took my guitar out and basically just, last Friday I just watched a second grader eat lunch.
Yeah.
That was my office hour. And while he did, I said, all right, you like the Beatles? Here's a bunch of Beatles songs.
And, it was interesting. For a while, I almost thought about getting out of education and going into software development. And so I was taking online classes for developing code and programming software. And so I got to see a bit of the other side of asyncratic learning, where, you have content prepared for you, you have mentors and advisors, and you can reach out to them and set up office hours and problem solve together, but learning the content was on your own. And then watching schools scramble through this going, we're doing online learning, and it felt so painful to watch people trying to mirror what the classroom would feel like. Of, all right, everyone be at their screen. Never mind, like, in that one kid's camera behind them, like, the stove is now on fire, and the parents are upset. And I was like, oh, this is madness. It was interesting watching districts go, we're using Google. Google is... no security. We're now on Zoom. Oh, Zoom has hackers. Get off Zoom. Everyone back on Zoom. It was... So...
That sounds like a mess. We've been all Zoom all the way.
Yeah.
Zoom bombers be damned.
Well, and it's so strange. And I don't know if you've seen this phenomenon with Education Louisiana, but that we immediately attach ourselves to a program or an educational product that is sold for money, when if we just did a little bit of searching, there's one already being used by the school for free, but nobody knows about it.
I can't speak to that. I pretty much just only teach out of the Kodály handbooks.
Well, and it's not about the curriculum, because we're doing the Kodály Today books as well. It was more of like hey, we're all going to purchase everyone a website domain. Here it is. I'm like, Google gives you a free website. Or it's like, we're going to use this very expensive, screen share. I'm like, this already exists somewhere else.
I think that's where yet another place I'm really happy to have super competent administration. If that is going on, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
But so you said you just had your last day today.
Uh-huh.
Did you have the aforementioned mixed emotions, or was it just get me the hell out of here, or what was that like for you?
Oh, I'd have to say it was mixed emotions, because I've been trying to hop into kids' classrooms, but it's more like I become a distraction, because like the teachers are doing Zoom meetings, and if I show up, nothing gets done because it's the music teacher. Mm-hmm. And with my 8-year-old, like watching her regress a little bit of just being so frustrated, because they go, we've all put it on one site, but now you've got to follow this link. And this link is really only meant for the school computers because they have the access code and the licenses. Yeah, it was mixed. I was ready for it to be done, because after spring break, it just felt like I was in a summer's worth long professional development every day. a very unpleasant professional development every day where the work and home balance no longer existed.
Right.
Because
that's the great irony. You're at home the whole time, and yet you have no home life whatsoever.
Yeah, because it was like...
Or at least I found that.
Well, and I had to get into the routine of, if the first thing you do, you wake up, brush your teeth, and go for an hour bike ride. Get out of the house. Get some cardio in, because if you sit down at that computer, you're just going to get frustrated first thing in the morning and then forget to eat. So yeah, I'm glad it's done. It was interesting as an eye-opening experience for me, trying to like get people on the tech train for a long time. And then once COVID happened, everyone's like, we're getting on the tech train. And I'm like, you're 3 months late, but okay, we're going to get it. We're going to help you.
Better late than even later, as I always say.
Yeah. And then I guess the thing that stresses me out now is the summer professional development. And the argument that I've been getting from online, like that there are Kodály programs that want to go online, which I think is a valuable thing they should do, but they're like charging full price, and their argument, because Oak is against it, their argument is, well, we required teachers to teach online. We should be able to expect the same of ourselves. I'm like, all you're doing is taking teachers who've already been stressed out, and now they're going to do it over the summer, and like it's the same program except now
they're not. I mean, how are you gonna teach them how to teach Alabama Gal if you can't do the dances? Are you going to do it in a Zoom grid?
Yeah, it's interesting how people are all trying to figure this out, and just
I am so fascinated to see where this goes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I don't have to be a part of it, I must say.
There's that sick joy of like, oh, I wonder how this will stress out other people as I'm drinking my tea.
I just pet my certificate that I already have in a frame.
Well,
I was considering doing, some sort of ORF thing this summer, just because I have no ORF training at all, and I mean that's not happening at all. So
yeah,
who knows?
It's weird living in Texas where they're opening up the state, and they're like, we're going to open up summer school, and yet our cases are going up, like the ICUs are packed, and there are people like, it's a conspiracy, and I'm like, I don't. What?
That's my favorite thing to hear. Like,
yeah. What was I'm assuming the editing was the hardest part for you, just being the time constraint.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like in 3M, like I've got it done.
So I learned. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
One thing that made it easier after the first few episodes, so I stuck to the same sequence for each of the 8 episodes, and I figured out, wait a minute, I've got the entire season plotted out. I've got every activity plotted out. So rather than like film them one episode at a time, the 8 different sequences, I'm going to film all of the remaining 6 body warm-up sequences for the remaining 6 episodes before I move on to the tongue twister.
Yep.
And that was a game changer because it helped me cut down on, the time it takes to move a bookshelf so that I can dance in front of a blank wall and then move the bookshelf back.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do that one time instead of 6 more times. Once I figured that out, I thought that it would go a lot faster, but yes, the editing ended up taking just the bulk of the time, whether it was editing in iMovie or editing things in GarageBand.
Yeah. Well, what would you say was the biggest lesson takeaway you can take from teaching online at the House on Music Street for your teaching career moving forward?
Oh God, I don't know if I've even processed that. I will say one. I haven't gotten that deep in the recesses of my brain yet to really be able to answer that. But I can say from a practical standpoint, one of my friends from Kodály, Antonio, told me, "Oh,
Antonio
this is
Noriega?
great." Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, "This is great, man. You have sub plans for the rest of your career."
Yes.
And so on those emergency sick days where like I realize an hour before school that I can't go in and I don't have any sub plans, I can just email a link to that video, and it is an entire music class that is sort of molded to be generic enough that it can work for any grade.
Mm-hmm.
So from a practical standpoint, I'm really happy about that. The biggest takeaway,
it's public access Quaver, essentially.
Sure. Yeah. And I fully invite other people to do that too.
Yep.
I mean, we've all been there where we don't have a sub plan and we don't know what to do and we're freaking out. And like maybe you go to school when you're sick and you shouldn't because you don't have a sub plan or whatever.
Oh,
just use those. Just email a link to any random episode and it will be fine.
I'd have to say my favorite sub quote when they talk to me is like, well, I don't sing or read music. Well, you're going to learn because here's my videos that you're going to play.
Right. Just building up this massive stockpile of recorded content has been one silver lining, for sure, of all of this. I now have 8 Echo songs that I can play with my young kids at the press of a button that have a studio track recording behind it. I've got visual examples of canon. That's one great takeaway. I discovered that a great way to teach canon in the early stages is just to have a video of you in a split screen with I don't know if you saw when I did you see when I did Rocky Mountain?
Oh yes, I've watched all of them like a fangirl. Yes, I watched all of them.
That's amazing. Thank you. But yeah, I wrote the lyrics to Rocky Mountain on each of the 6 sides of a box.
Yeah.
And when you have that visual aid and you toss it to show the next line, when you get to the next line, then it's a very apparent visual representation of what a canon is.
Yeah, that was very impressive.
I don't remember how I thought of that. I'm sure I stole it from someone on some music teacher.
We're all thieves in this career.
But yeah, there's, I guess, necessity is the mother of invention, because I did come up with some cool new creative ways of teaching things that I had not thought about before in traditional live classroom setting.
And for me, like I know how I'm going to stream my lessons with Google Slides and essentially like prepare stuff so much more effectively. Even while I'm in the classroom, like I know I can pre-record myself singing and maybe just do one time around, but then put it into a recording program like Audacity or GarageBand, and then just have a play loop for the song so that I don't have to just rely on me as the teacher to keep the game going, and I can like handle behavior, and if the kids need a strong vocal background, they've got it. Like, it's weird and also just very comforting. The skills that you learn in a crisis like this can just help you become a better teacher when we come back to something that feels normal next year, even if we're wearing masks. Like,
right. It will be interesting to see what happens next year. But yeah, I mean, I recorded a lot of books. Like I recorded musical backing tracks of books that I love to read to kids, and it just gives it a new dimension rather than when I'm reading it in a sing-songy voice without some sort of backing accompaniment. Or pressing play on someone else's recorded version of that same story. So I guess it wasn't all bad.
No, it's certainly it's nice when we can add things to our toolbook, and especially like, oh, I now have things for next year, just at the drop of the hat.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
But that being said, I hope to never repeat this experience.
Yes, I'm
sure
very
at some
excited
point.
for a vaccine. Very excited.
Oh man, that would be great.
Yep. But like I know we're going back to school in the fall. I'm pretty sure of it, and I will be that teacher wearing the mask all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like no longer in the lunchroom. It'll be eating my cold sandwich alone.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how you could fall for such a hoax, but
Oh God. Well, and on that note, Jeremy, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
same to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.